Hey guys, this is your buddy Jeff Van Kampen with Clinic Growth Secrets. Welcome to another episode. And on Clinic Growth Secrets, this is where we teach you how to get more patients, make more profit per patient, and teach you how to keep them as long as humanly possible. And today we are having another guest on here, and I'm beyond humbled and excited that he's even agreed to take the time to join us today. But before we get into any of the excitement, as you guys know who are longtime listeners, we do have a fee for the show. And the fee is this: we're not going to charge your credit card. We're not going to ask for any monetary donations. We're not going to ask for you to PayPal us 50 cents an episode. All we ask is that if you get value from the show, that you share the show with somebody else in your immediate network who would also get value. That's how we ultimately get our message out there. And that's how we find more awesome people, get a chance to interview them, and bring those lessons back to you on the show. So if you get value, if we make you laugh, we make you think, share it with somebody in your life who would also get value from the episode. And so, guys, I want to welcome today's guest. Actually, today's guest is a gentleman that I recently got connected with over the last 3 to 4 months. I would love to give a warm welcome to Dr. Joseph Esposito for being part of our show today. Doc, thanks for being here, my good sir.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate the opportunity. Excited for this conversation.
100%. Me as well. And like I said earlier, we are going to be getting to know each other very deeply on the show. Again, we recently got connected. But I want to give you guys listening a little bit of a top level of Dr. Joseph and kind of what he's been able to accomplish in his career so far. And so Dr. Esposito, he does have an extensive postgraduate academic accomplishments, as well as 15 years of managing successful chiropractic clinics in multiple states. And he's the founder of 2 very, very successful companies, founder and CEO of Aceva LLC. Am I saying that right? Aceva LLC, which is a nutritional based company providing products and services to the AlignLife clinics, which transitions well. He's also the CEO of AlignLife Chiropractic Clinics, which is now a very quickly growing franchise in the space. And so we're going to dive into all things business, all things chiropractic today. And I want to start, as we always do, Dr. Joseph, where did this all begin for you, sir? Like, how did you even get into chiropractic in the first place? Like, where did this all start for you?
My journey in chiropractic, I was the doubter, the skeptic, I guess is what you would call me as a child. And I had an injury, and my wrestling coach wanted to take me to a chiropractor, and I refused to go. I said, I'm not going to one of those quacks. I'm going to be a surgeon. It's not my gig. He called my mother and asked her if he could take me after practice. So after practice, he said, get in the car, you go to a chiropractor. And I said, are you kidnapping me? He says, yes. So I got kidnapped to a chiropractor.
That's so funny.
And let me just grab my charger here. And I went into this house, and I was like, what the heck is this? And some guy came out, hugged me. No doctor ever hugged me before. And then he put me on a table and jumped on me, and my 6 months of pain disappeared. And I was in total shock that the big hospital with the big machines and the white coats and all this stuff and the 15 floors, they couldn't do anything. And some guy in his living room jumped on me and everything went away. And I was like, there's something to this. So that's my story.
That's the best robbery or the best kidnapping I've ever heard in my life. I never thought I would actually say those words. So that's what enlightened you. And so how old were you at that point?
I was a senior in high school, and that started my journey to investigate this thing. And I, obviously took that journey from there on.
And so you were a senior in high school. At that point in time, you said you were set on becoming a surgeon. You got kidnapped. You got cracked in someone's house, as you may say at that time. And all the pain and all the magic pain went away. The magic began. And so at that point in time, like you didn't even go to school to be a surgeon, I would assume. You immediately went right into chiropractic.
Yeah, I went to pre-med. It's still thinking through it. And then I said, you know what? It just was, resonated inside of me. And I went to visit Life University, and I was like, it's just too logical for me to pass up. I have to do this. So
there's just some specific calling. It's the energy, right? That's amazing. That's amazing. I've heard a lot of wild stories about how people get into it. They're the first kidnapping I've heard so far. So that began the journey. And now you've had a wildly successful academic, clinical career, and obviously transitioning into, the AlignLife franchises and also the nutritional company. But I want to think back, even closer to, are you one that, when you graduated, did you go out and work for somebody right away? Did you start your own practice right away? What did that life look like after graduation?
I worked as an independent contractor for a mentor. I worked in his clinic as an independent contractor. And within 6 months, I was controlling his staff, changed his name, changed his hours, rewrote his manual, and just redeveloped it. And he says, "You want to run it?" I said, "Yeah." So 6 months out of school, I was running a clinic for somebody else. And a year later, I opened my first clinic, and I built 6 clinics in my first 6 years. So, by the 7th month in practice, I was breaking ground on my second clinic. So
That,
it was a pretty fast move in the beginning for me.
that's amazing. And so I got to ask this, we're talking a little bit about the background. Obviously, in order to go 6 clinics in 6 years, basically joining a clinic as an IC, taking over that clinic in 6 months, and then over the next 6 years, building 6 more clinics. There's obviously a level of business acumen that comes with that. Where did that knowledge come from?
My dad was in business with Xerox Corporation, so I understand the culture. I didn't learn anything but the culture and the communication and expectation mindset. And I think I was a systems person by nature, just my true innate. So I started writing policies day one. I sat there to have my first office meeting. I hired 2 staff, and we had no chairs, so we sat on the floor. And I said, "Well, why don't you take notes?" She said, "We had no pens." I said, "Well, call Office Depot." She said, "We have no phone." I said, "Okay, well, we better backtrack and figure out how to get this meeting started," because we couldn't call for a pen. We didn't have a pen. And then I had 2 staff, and they didn't have job descriptions. I just thought 2 sounded good, and I hired them both, and I didn't know what they were going to do. So from that day, I started writing policies of saying, well, first I got to figure out, and I taught myself how to open a clinic. I taught myself, scar tissue along the journey. And it turned into a 430-page operation manual with scripts and flows 23 years later. So
That's impressive. And I love the systems nature of it too. And that's kind of what I was going to dive a little bit deeper on at some point, especially as we get into the AlignLife business. Because at some point, that's really the main driver of everything, is being able to systematically accomplish the same goal over and over and over and over again. And we're going to get more into that as we talk a little about the AlignLife franchises. But when you think back to your first 6 clinics, or maybe even your first, when after 6 months of taking over that first initial one, what were some of your biggest lessons at that time? Like, you think back, like, man, I really messed that up, but it turned out to be a big lesson.
I think people have a lack of the only guarantee of implementation is inspection, is auditing. So I remember the doctor that was running the clinic, the first clinic, and he's like, "This biller she's the greatest." And then she would quit, and he'd go in, and the staff would look through the files and go, "What a wreck. She didn't do anything." Mm-hmm. Next staff quits. "She was wonderful. She quit." They looked in the process and said, "Oh my God, she didn't do anything right." And I watched this go over and over that first 6 months, because it was a turnover. And I said, "You know what? Why don't you write what the job should be, and then audit it and inspect it and then train to it, so you get what you want, because it doesn't look like you get what you want, but you think you're getting it." So that was like a aha moment as a young, dumb, new chiropractor. And then that's where I started learning that, we have to inspect, we have to train in order to see that we get the outcome we want.
I love it. And it's so, like, that hits at home for me. I worked at a manufacturing facility as an intern during my time in engineering school. And we would do these basically entire area revamps. Maybe it was like the saws area. We'll reorganize everything. We'll replace products, make it more efficient for the operators. But to your point, the only way it never just completely went back to the original way it was is if you continued to audit. You actually sustained the movement moving forward, because just putting it out there and expecting everyone to do the same is the quickest way to just go back to you becoming insane.
Yeah, I look at both business and clinical. I have an extensive clinical background, but my mind works in an algorithm, kind of like an engineer probably would. So I just process, like, whether I'm dealing with terminal cancer, morbid obesity, chronic low back pain, or dealing with a lack of a KPI moving. To me, there's an algorithm. It's just process and behavior. And, you just got to figure out what are the levers and how do I mitigate risk by minimizing variables. And it's all about minimize variables to create outcomes, right? I look at everything like an experiment, because I do a lot of research on the clinical side, formulating nutritional products. So I'm always looking at, how to create that sustainable outcome, business or clinical, same mindset.
I like that. So the algorithm in your mind consists of processes that can be leveraged and tweaked to get an outcome, but also the behaviors in those actually executing the processes.
Yes.
I love that.
My business mind works with at the top is the core ideology of looking at purpose, mission, vision, core values as a thing, as a premise. And then underneath that, my mind goes to the word refinement of two things: refinement of your analytics and refinement of your behaviors. We got to make our numbers better and tighter and more quality, more granular as we grow. And then you got to figure out which behaviors are going to change those numbers. But the data has to get more refined, and so does the behavior change. And then underneath that is just expectation and accountability. What should you do, and did you do it? And that's my whole layout for everything that I do.
I love that. I love that. And that actually transitioned us beautifully well because, Dr. Joe, and just for my clarity too, do you prefer Dr. Joseph, Dr. Joe? Should have asked
Joe's
that long
fine.
ago. Awesome. So Dr. Joe he's really become well known, at least from my perspective, in the franchise space in chiropractic with the AlignLife franchise. And so when did you start AlignLife in that franchise model? What year was that?
It's probably been 14 years or something like that. Yeah, it was about 14 years. We didn't do much the first 4 years. We just converted our current clinics and tried to create some framework around it. We moved from a partnership model to a franchise model and just spent many years tightening up, cleaning up, refining systems. And then really about 10 years ago, we started to, move.
Got it. Okay. So within the last, 15 years max, you've built, and how many locations are you guys at nowadays? You guys have just over 40?
Just about 40, I think just a hair under, I think 39-ish.
39 locations with the goal of getting to, I think 100, if I remember right, in the next few years.
Yes. We're aggressively moving now in growth mode right now. We spent 10 years refining systems. I'm too much of a perfectionist, so I kind of went slow for a while.
No, that's good. I mean, especially when you have an agenda to build as many locations as that, you got to have the nuts and bolts pretty tight on the front end there too. So, when you think about your relationship with the franchise model and that such, what empowered you to go that route? What was hey man, what was the spark that's I'm going to open 100 locations?
Well, there's two sides of that. One is my integrity of what I feel is good for the business relationship, and the other is my life mission. On the integrity side, I was doing partnerships where I would do a 50-50 partnership. And after, the first year I look like I'm great, I'm a superhero. The second year, they know as much as me. By the third year, I don't know anything and they know everything. And you have a 50-50 split. So you're kind of out of that energy exchange integrity that I didn't feel as comfortable. So I wanted to change it. So we changed from that 50-50 to we have no ownership. It's a 7% royalty exchange. And we up-leveled our offering by 100x what we were doing in partnerships. So it's a very small amount of economic exchange for 10 times the deliverable, if that makes sense. So to me, it sat really well to build long-term relationships. So was the integrity side. On the other side, my mission is to publish large-scale research to validate chiropractic. So that's the purpose of my whole journey. Purpose of the nutrient line, the purpose of the franchise. We also had a software company that pooled the data, and we also started a nonprofit to publish the research. So we have everything in place to, end of my journey will be large scale publishing.
That is phenomenal. So it all contributes back to that core central target that you have for yourself. And you've spoken to me briefly about what you call the integrated model that you guys use within the AlignLife franchises, where you combine the lifestyle mindset of chiropractic with the nutritional aspect of just health in general. Can you dive a little bit deeper into that model and how you've seen that work as you've scaled the franchises?
Yeah, we have a integrated culture of looking at lifestyle, toxicity, deficiency, and neurology as components. Not all of the clinics have fully embraced, but we're working more and more as we expand to hold the line of the culture. Been soft in the culture because initially chiropractors are so biomechanically focused, but I'm learning how to better express the inspiration I have and getting tighter when new clinics are coming on board on the true mission that I have, which is looking at 3 different components of not only physiology, but biomechanics and neurology. Is when we look at the human body, one of the first things we see is a body composition alteration where we have adipose tissue at such a high rate that it's altering mechanics and neurology, period. And we can't escape that. We can't ignore it anymore. We don't want to do it as chiropractors, but 68%, it's approaching 70 now, are either overweight or obese. So we either hand it off to people that cause you to lose weight, muscle, fat, but they also cause you to lose muscle. And that's not acceptable to me. So that's one component. Body composition assessment. Second is metabolic derangement of the body, inflammatory, blood sugar imbalances. So we do a laboratory assessment. And third, obviously, we take an X-ray to look at the spinal integrity. So those are three objective tests that we are putting on the line to have all patients experience. What's my body comp? How's my metabolic function? And then how is my spinal integrity? Those three as a deliverable.
That's phenomenal. And I don't want to assume, but I relating back to what you said earlier is like, I'm a perfectionist. It took me a long time to optimize the systems, but now we're in scale mode. My thought was, is it because you wanted to get that model so accurate before you expanded it that's what took time?
Yeah, I couldn't figure out how to teach the functional medicine component because I had massive background in it. I was doing genetic testing 19 years ago with squamous cells in the cheeks. I was doing, 24-hour urine collections for toxicity in 1990, so I was at a different level, and to try to transfer that knowledge wasn't realistic. So I looked at the model and saying, how can we deliver quick impact on the functional medicine and metabolic side of things? And we created lab testings with interpretation with functional medicine practitioners to do the work for you. So it's like you're getting high level deliverable, but you're not having to spend 20 years mastering physiology. That's not the role of the chiropractor. So we've mastered the point where the chiropractor is the chiropractor, but inside their office, there'd be a health coach. There's a virtual functional medicine practitioner. We have a team of people that back the actual facility, but that chiropractor checks spines, moves bones, frees up neurology, and makes recommendations that will up-level the metabolic function and regulate the body composition.
I love that. And so that's how you ultimately made it scalable. As you said, hey, if you're a chiropractor, you can take over you can become part of our group, but you don't have to know everything. Okay. Because we have these other systems in place that are going to support you, and you can just do what you do best. What you said is, again, bone movement, neuropathic freeing, all that kind of stuff.
Yes. And
that's brilliant.
That's what we're finding now is the COVID helped us create acceptance of the virtual side of deliverables for the clinic. Before that, it was a little odd to get on a Zoom call for a healthcare. Now it's like, neurologists are actually seeing patients at home in a normal practice now. So.
I love that. And yeah, 100%. And that is what been like an entire kind of cultural shift, if you will, market shift, is that people are so much more accepted to online receptive stuff. And I was doing a little homework on you too. You, at some point in time, you had some internet-based business that you were a CFO of. Is that right?
Yeah, back about how many years ago was that? I remember AOL clicking every 3 seconds, you've got mail, buying online ebooks at $37 a pop, and it would just sing one after another all day long. So I remember those days. I love that AOL sound.
That's so funny. Well, that kind of translates into more the business side of things. And before we had started the show, you and I were having a discussion, and we talked about one of the things we really wanted to get into today was talking about valuation of clinics, how to scale the value of a clinic. And really the role that maybe a franchise can help play in the valuation of a clinic. Can we go down there and you can talk about the general idea of valuation and how to scale it?
Yeah. So, the business model of looking at a franchise, one is that it's leverage. You got to just decide. Most of the people on this call, if they're students, they're smart, they're charismatic, they know their stuff, they're probably good adjusters. But they got to decide, not can I be successful, is how quick, how much, how fast do I want to do it, and how much risk do I want to take? So a franchise just basically applies gasoline to the fire. If they manage your back end, if they have a call center, if they do lead management, if they build your website, if they have SEO, if they have teams of people that just deliver what you just can't as a single practitioner, it's leverage. And you got to weigh the leverage to the economic investment and say, I could scale 3, 4, 10, 20x if I have back-end leverage. And that's what we offer. And when you were looking at valuation, it's about continuity of care. It's about system integration. that whether it's a private equity firm, an individual owner, a group that's buying, if you have that continuity of system and process and branding, you have more value. And the chiropractic market value is skyrocketing over the last 5 years. We have mature deals coming to market, one closing right now for about $500 million. There's things moving on that the strength of the value of a chiropractic clinic is starting to really move. So if I was a young practitioner, I would leverage a franchise to say, let me put up 5 in the next 10 years with a EBITDA of $250,000, where I have 1.25 EBITDA and a valuation of 10, 15, 20 million. These conversations weren't heard of 10 years ago. Like, you couldn't even have this conversation. So, and I know that may be mumbo jumbo for some young docs, but that's just the concept.
Oh, that's very, very interesting. I talking to you, you think the only thing you're thinking about besides your clinical research and all that kind of stuff is leverage. Where do I have the most leverage?
Yeah.
And
that's my favorite word is, what can I do to leverage my skills, my team, the profession? We all want to leverage. We have limited time. It's a limited resource. We have to maximize our impact.
And so for say docs, there's a doc on the line, or someone's listening to this show in 2 weeks, and they're starting out. They have a clinic. They're doing, let's say, $2,500, $3,000 a month. They're brand new. They don't have really anything moving so far. How would you define, as someone who's used it over and over and scaled to bigger and bigger things, how would you define leverage?
Leverage is an exchange. So you're exchanging time, money, expertise for something else to gain more impact on your side. So there's 2 sides. There's the other side and your side. You say, what do you have? Well, I have this many dollars, and if this dollars brings me this value or this intellectual property or this marketing or whatever it is, training, and I can leverage that, what will that do to your bottom line? And that's the question you got to constantly be asking yourself. I think chiropractors, I can make fun of them because I'm a chiropractor. It's my profession as well. But we are a scarcity mindset. We're poverty stricken as a culture. That's the way we grew up in this profession. And it's time for us to look at abundance and leverage and value. And these conversations, frankly, aren't taught at the schools, and they're not in the general circle. We have to mature that young chiropractor to understand these conversations.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. The ability to leverage your time, your resources, and your energy so that you can basically get more out for the day's work in your side and theirs and this side.
Yeah, I'm about creating harmony in life, and whether you're making great revenue and you have a miserable life or no relationships with your children or your spouse, or you're not enjoying your day, that's not success to me. So I think the first thing whoever's listening should do, if they're out of in frustration because between their goal and their reality, there's a big gap. I think they got to first define what success looks like and then backtrack from there. If it's just monetary, that's one thing. If it's harmony with life and your values, that's another thing. So you got to first get grounded on what success is, because when we start the journey in the franchise, the first question I'm going to ask, if you're interested in AlignLife, is we got to define what success looks like to see if I can even deliver what you want. I used to tell them what it was. Took me 10 years and a lot of gray hair to figure out, I don't know what success looks like to any human. They need to tell me, and then I can see out of my authenticity if I could help deliver that or not.
I love that. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And so when we think about docs that are scaling, let's say someone who's not in a franchise, docs that are building, what would be some advice as to, if you're not in a franchise and you're going to build the 6 locations, is there anything that, lessons that you thought through as you built those 6 locations? Was it back to systems, or what would that thought process be?
Yeah, well, first you got to be obsessed with systems, and then you got to really create some integration between the values of your team members and make sure they fit into the values of the company. So there's congruency there. If they don't, you got to, make sure that you create the right team, and then make sure they're in the right seat of the bus and they're doing the right actions for the growth of the company. So we get a lot of friction, a lot of resistance, because there's a gap either in congruency and core values, there's a lack of gap between the goal of the company and the goal of the employee, or just confusion on we don't know what we're trying to accomplish. Because as you add the second clinic or the third clinic, all of that begins to dissipate. So if your purpose or mission is weak, by the second clinic, it's half as strong. By the third clinic, it's a third. You have to be grounded and convicted and strong in what you're trying to accomplish and how to get there. And then make sure the team resonates with the same messaging that you have, because it waters down the bigger you get, and you got to get more refined before you scale.
I love that. Refine before you scale. Optimize before you throw gas on the fire.
Yep.
Beautiful. Well, I have, we've been on for about 30 minutes, and I want to be respectful of all the listeners' time and your time, sir. I do have one last more hypothetical question that I like to ask all the guests, especially those that have the experience that you have. Okay. So here's the question. Let's say we wake up tomorrow, you lose everything. You lose all of your businesses, your cash flow, your company, your relationships, but you still have all the knowledge and skills that you have today. You've got 30 days to build everything back from day 1 to 30. What are you going to do first to build the most leverage and get as far as you can in 30 days?
I would probably spend the first 10 days building the team. Too many of us go right into building the business before we build the team. So I would be very cautious and very refined on how I would put the team together. Then I'd spend about the next 15 days refining the strategy and rebuilding and challenging and refining again and getting granular on how we're going to deliver it and what are the resources and how much money and what are the KPIs, and spend most of the time in that stage, because we never spend enough time challenging the strategy and figuring out contingency plans and how are we going to audit that and how are we going to report, what are the reporting mechanisms, what are the meeting rhythms, all of that. And then I'd spend the last 5 days executing.
So first 25 days, actually just building team, building infrastructure, mission, making sure everyone's in alignment, no pun intended, and then literally going full force on scale.
Yeah.
Brilliance. Focusing on the who and the what. What did you say earlier? The processes and behaviors, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then the work is easier. And if you have 5 days to do the work, you get more done than if you started day one saying, let's get going today.
Yeah.
And you're going in all different directions. The entrepreneurs don't starve, they drown. They do too much, they don't accomplish enough, and they drown. So I don't want to have an entrepreneur drown. So spend more time picking your people, more time in your strategy, and less time shoveling and doing the work.
That's advice that even hits at home for me very much. So I think we all do, especially as you go in the journey. I appreciate all your wisdom, Dr. Joe, and you taking the time to join. If people are interested in learning more about you, about AlignLife, about your nutrition business, where can they reach out?
Yeah, you can go to aceva.com for the nutrition. That's aceva.com. And that's not just AlignLife. There's doctors around the world that use it, hospital systems, medical clinics. It's an independent nutrient company for functional medicine. The other for AlignLife, AlignLifeOpportunity.com will take you to a site talking about the actual franchise opportunity. I personally take through some strategies. So there are existing clinics. They should ask for me, and we'll look at all of the data and look at the low-hanging fruit and build a strategy to scale immediately on any existing clinic. So I would personally be involved in those.
Awesome. So that's aceva.com for all functional medicine and just supplement needs. And then AlignLifeOpportunity.com, learn more about the franchise and franchise opportunity. Dr. Joe, I appreciate everything. We'll make sure to link those out in the show notes for you. But again, I appreciate your time, and I hope we can do it again sometime.
Sounds great. Appreciate the opportunity, Jeff.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.